for joining me today. This is our weekly live stream, and yes, you are welcome. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of April 2026. How has April been for you? It's been great for me. I hope it has been that way for you as well. Who can guess our topic for today? It's brain chemistry and execution, the science of why we procrastinate. How many of you have ever procrastinated? How many of you have ever procrastinated? I believe everybody has procrastinated at one point in time or the other. Thank you for joining me today. When you come into the live stream, I want to know your name and where you're joining me from. I am Elizabeth Amorare. So let's dive straight in. There are three parts to this: brain chemistry and execution, the science of why we procrastinate. We're going to be talking about the first part, decoding the biological conflict, the second part, the chemistry of the unstoppable, and the third part, moving beyond willpower. Moving beyond willpower. Who is excited and who is with me? Drop your comments, drop your name, tell me where you're joining me from. I'm excited to have you on the live stream this morning, right? Okay, so there are three phases to this conversation that we are going to have. But briefly, before I continue, I want to go through a research that was done recently, right? On workplace productivity. So a lot of professionals actually confessed that they had eighty-eight percent of them admitted that they procrastinate daily for about an hour, and those who struggle with chronic procrastination were about 20%, and they also admitted this as well. The average time spent on task avoidance was 2 plus 2 hours daily. This was a research that was done, and professionals admitted to this. And then there was this emotional toll that he had on them. 94% of them admitted that there was a decrease in overall happiness, of course. And the financial drain amounted to about $10,000 yearly per employee. Can you see that there's a really, really deep problem? A lot of not just a time management issue, it's deeper than that. So to provide the why behind the how, why you procrastinate, and this run through the science behind procrastination. So phase one, decoding the biological conflict. Execution is more than a neurobiological negotiation, and it's not a matter of trying harder. It's more of a neurobiological negotiation. It's not just about you trying harder. Okay, research shows that when we feel a task, that triggers self-doubt or overwhelm. When we face a task, it triggers self-doubt or overwhelm. Okay, and what happens? There's an amygdala hijack. So research shows that when you face a task, it triggers a self-doubt or overwhelm, and the brain's emotional radar, which is your amygdala, perceives it as a genuine threat, right? And it initiates a limbic hijack, bypassing the rational prefrontal cortex. So if you're in my sessions, I think about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, I talked about system one and system two. System one is fast, non-conscious, and furious, right? And that's your limbic system. It makes rapid judgments and it's feelings driven. But your prefrontal cortex, which is system two, is slow, calculative, rational, and conscious. So that's the thinking part of your brain. So the limbic hijack bypasses the rational prefrontal cortex. So you would rather not sit with that difficult task because the brain is signaling to you that this is a threat, is a threat, is a threat. So what do you need to do? You need to avoid it. Okay. So the cognitive bias where the brain values immediate rewards, like scrolling TikTok, significantly higher than future rewards, sort of like completing a project, is known as the hyperbolic discounting. And so, what you need to do, the brain is literally wired to choose the dopamine hit over the 100 success hits later. So, your brain is wired to choose the current dopamine hit rather than the 100 success hits later, which is your long term goal or that project that you are about to execute. So, what do you need to do? We're talking about procrastination. Okay, procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, ERP. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, ERP, and not a time management problem, TMP. I'm using this so you can remember. Procrastination is not Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, ERP. You are using avoid to manage the negative mood associated with the task, and that would work. So we are using the dose framework here. The dose framework here, I'm going to run you through the dose framework that you can use to hack procrastination literally. Okay, so we have dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and epinephrine. Now dose framework, so you don't forget as well. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and epinephrine. I'm going to run through that quickly. Okay, so this is phase two, the dose framework that you can use to hack procrastination. Dopamine is released during the pursuit of a goal, not just the achievement. Dopamine is released during the pursuit of a goal and not just the achievement. And there's a research that backs this up. Stanford neurobiologist Andrew Huberman notes that rewarding the effort process is key to long term motivation. If you want to stay motivated for the long term, you have to have a way to integrate, a system where you are rewarded for that goal, that task, that project that you are working on, right? So he notes that rewarding the effort process is key to a long-term motivation. So your brain is craving that reward and then it pushes you to execute that task. Okay, micro milestoning and random rewards. Don't just break tasks down, attach a small reward to them. The uncertainty of a reward increases dopamine release more than one generated, and that's what I talked about. So infuse a reward in that system that you've created to execute on that goal or project. So for example, when you write 200 words, allow yourself 2 minutes of your favorite song or a quick stretch, or just some time to go on social media to feed your eyes. Okay, but that must come as a reward after you have executed that goal, you have gone through that deep work. If you didn't listen to my last class, please do. Okay, we're moving on now to MOFO. Pardon me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. MOFO. So MOFO, we are talking about brain chemistry and execution, the science of why we procrastinate. Brain chemistry and execution, the science of why we procrastinate. And I said that procrastination is an emotional regulation problem and not a time management problem. Okay, please drop me a comment so I know that you are with me and you understand. Okay, so let me move on. And I'm talking about the dose framework on how you can hack procrastination. So I talked about dopamine, the reward and pursuit engine. And then the second is oxytocin, the accountable hormone. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So when cortisol is high, your PFC shuts down. Remember, your PFC is the thinking part of your brain system too. So when cortisol is high in your system, your PFC shuts down. So you would need high levels of oxytocin in your system to help you with your goal execution. Okay, so the Hawthorne effect kicks in here and it says that psychological phenomenon is a psychological phenomenon that proves that individuals modify their behavior when they know they are being observed. Individuals modify their behavior when they know they are being observed. And if you missed getting into cohort 6 of Unstoppable Me, you still have another chance. Okay, can people develop dependency on procrastination to mask other matters going on? Okay, I'll take that later. Okay, thank you for your question. I'll take that later. Okay, so I was talking about the Hawthorne effect. So people modify their behavior when they know that they are being observed, and that's why it's good to get into a system that gives you that momentum and drive to push through with your goal or project. Cohort 6 of Unstoppable Me was closed, I think, about 3 weeks ago. Yes, but cohort 7 is going to open up on the 17th of August. I'm going to drop the link to in the description on how you can get on that wait list so you prepare. It's a 90-day deep execution engine. It's a 90-day execution deep dive where we come together, you sit with your goals, and you're able to move from ideas to ideation, okay, through that 90-day period. So join the Unstoppable Me execution engine so that you can put your dreams to flight, so that you can execute on that goal that you wrote at the beginning, at the start of the year. Those projects that you wrote down that you wanted to execute on, you can put them to flight. You can start working on them gradually right through that 90-day period, and you move your ideas from the intangible state into the tangible state. You get to sort of feel your idea, right, tangibly. Okay, so the social pressure creates a healthy level of oxytocin driven focus, and it helps you stay accountable to the process, to the project, to the goal or idea that you have set for yourself. And that's giving you high levels of self respect, professionalism, and brutal execution. So the third here is serotonin. Remember, we're talking about the dose framework. D for dopamine, O for oxytocin, S for serotonin, and E for epinephrine. Okay. So the mood serotonin is the mood and focus stabilizer. So this is where you have to sort of inject hormones that project that you're working on. Remember, I said procrastination is more of an emotional regulation problem than a time management problem. Okay, so serotonin levels are linked to a sense of status and calm. So low serotonin leads to urgent, important confusion where you tackle easy, low value tasks just to feel busy. So being busy is not the same as being productive. Being busy is not the same as being productive. Are you actually working on the goals that you set for yourself and not just some random task that you picked up or some other task that somebody else assigned to you? Okay, being busy is not being productive. And so serotonin is important for focus, to stabilize your focus. Gratitude and status anchoring. So you can spend 60 minutes visualizing a time that you had executed a goal and you were actually able to feel that moment. You were able to experience that dream, that goal, that project come to life. So you flash back, take your memory back to that period so you can feel that emotion again. So you're bringing back, you're trying to infuse serotonin into your system. Spend 60 seconds visualizing a time you performed at your peak. This visual recall floods your brain with serotonin, signaling to your limbic system that you are capable and you are safe. Remember, the limbic system hijacks whatever it is that it hijacks your brain, so you think that that goal that you want to work on or going through that deep work is a threat. So we are trying to bypass, the message that the limbic system has sent to you. So you are trying to communicate to the limbic system that it's capable, that you are capable and safe, and you can really work on that project going through deep work. So it reduces the urge to flee into procrastination. I hope you are with me. Okay, please drop your questions in the comments and I'll take that afterwards. Okay, so the last of the dose framework is epinephrine, the alertness spike. Epinephrine is the alertness spike. So the move from limbic system to flow, you need to move from your limbic system to your flow state, and that's why norepinephrine is required. Epinephrine is the alertness spike, and norepinephrine is epinephrine in the brain. So this creates the narrowed visual focus required for deep work. It creates the narrowed visual focus required for deep work. So Dr. David Spiegel discussed a system where there's a psychological sigh that you can integrate. So what does this do? It's a breathing pattern. So two inhales, one long exhale, and that's the fastest way to balance the autonomic nervous system, ANS. It's the fastest way to balance the autonomous nervous system. And what does this mean? It means that if you feel stuck, 3 cycles of the psychological sigh helps to clear the carbon dioxide in the brain, and it sharpens mental alertness instantly. So two inhales and one long exhale. Two inhales and one long exhale. What does this do? It clears carbon dioxide and sharpens mental alertness instantly. Remember, we are trying to integrate epinephrine into your system, which is the alertness spike. Okay, so moving on to phase three, moving beyond willpower. Remember, I talked about brain chemistry and execution, the science of why we procrastinate. We're decoding the biological conflict, we're moving beyond willpower, and we are walking through the chemistry of unstoppable professionals. Okay, so phase three now, moving beyond willpower, activation energy. Who here was taught activation energy in chemistry? Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me read from you. Do you still recall what activation energy is in chemistry? Okay, we are going to do a recall briefly now. So activation energy is a principle and is the minimum energy required to start a reaction. Activation energy is the minimum energy required to start a reaction. And so energy is required to start that project, to start that goal that you're trying to work on. You require a minimum amount of energy. So activation energy needs to be introduced here. Okay, in execution, your starting energy is usually higher than sustaining energy. So you really need that boost, right? The starting energy is required. This is always higher than the sustaining energy. And so you can use the 20-second rule. The 20-second rule here is from Harvard researcher Sean Acker, and I talked about this in my previous sessions. And it says that you find that lowering to take to a task by just 20 seconds. For example, having your laptop open to the page where you want to work on. If you want to write a book, having your laptop open to the page where you want to work on. So you don't have to keep searching through tons of files on how to really get there. That helps you to really kickstart activation energy. So this drastically increases the likelihood for you to execute on that task. Okay, it increases the likelihood for you to start. So visual cues can also help reduce the cognitive load. A study from Princeton University found that physical clutter in your environment competes for your attention. Remember, I talked about choice architecture, designing your environment to really power your focus and attention. Recall that we talked about the attention fortress, the focus fortress, and the call to excruciating growth. Okay, and so physical clutter in your environment competes with your attention, and it rapidly decreases your performance and increases your stress. Rapidly decreases your performance and increases your stress. So what must you do? Clear off everything in your desk except the tools that you need for your current task. Clear up everything on your desk except the tools that you need for your current task. And so running through the execution task stack now, there are 4 phases to this, and it's the LC LC framework. L squared, C squared. So I'm giving you all these acronyms so that you can remember. We talked about procrastination being an emotional regulation problem, ERP, and not a time management problem, TMP. Now I've run through the dose framework on how you can hack procrastination. And so the next session now is to run you through the execution stack. L squared. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm running you through the execution stack.
Is the rest ready?
Yes. L squared, C squared. Okay. So the first is L, right? Lower the activation energy. I talked about that. Prep your environment the night before. I'm talking about the execution stack. Prep your environment, prep your environment the night before. Prep your environment the night before. The second, use the psychological side. I talked about that. Two inhales, one exhale to clear off carbon dioxide and increase your alertness. And then the second L is leverage the Zeigarnik effect. I also talked about the Zeigarnik effect by Bloomer Zeigarnik, okay? And he talked about the brain's tendency to remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. So the secret is to just start for 5 minutes. Just start for 5 minutes so that you can keep that loop open in your brain. Once a task is open in your brain, the Zeigarnik effect kicks in and it creates that psychological itch that every morning identify only three critical tasks that you need to do to prevent the PFC from feeling overwhelmed by an endless to-do list. Okay? Yes, so we ran through the L squared C squared execution stack. Lower the activation energy, clear the amygdala, close, leverage the Zeigarnik effect, and close the loops. Okay? All change is hard at first. All change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. Change is hard at first, messy at the middle, and gorgeous in the end. So always opt for a reward, which is essential to create a behavior that sticks. Okay. Okay, so I hope this has been beneficial to you. Tell me the frameworks that I shared. I shared the
How to we win, mommy?
go. I shared the dose framework. I shared the L squared C squared execution stack, and I talked about procrastination being the an emotional regulation problem and not a time management problem. So let me take this question briefly. Okay, can people develop dependency on procrastination to mask other matters going on in life? Of course. Procrastination is when you know you are meant to work on something, but your brain is your limbic system is saying to you that that task is a threat, and so he tries to avoid it. He tries to avoid that task and would rather go to tasks that will that will give you that instant dopamine hit. So you can do this. People do this a lot of times, right? People do this a lot of times. So and focusing on something else. So what do you need to do? To thyself be true. What do you need to do in the moment? I ran you through how the brain tries to second guess your decisions. So you have to present a different fact to your brain that no, this is what I want to do in the moment, and we have to see through this. So your goal, your real goal, your real job is to get your brain to embrace deep work, to really sit with whatever task that you have set for yourself. No running around, no your question. I hope I've been able to answer your question, Mofo. Okay, please confirm that I was able to answer your question. Okay, can't see any message from you. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my live stream for today. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section so I can take that briefly as okay. Drop them in the comment section so I can take that briefly as well. So I want to quickly share the lifetime habit arc with you, and that's from the 5 a.m. club. I believe it will help. So there are four phases to this. There's a trigger, the ritual, the reward, and the repetition. The trigger, the ritual, the reward, and the repetition. There is nothing you want to do that you don't have to repeat 1,000 times over. And if you've read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, I can't remember the title now. If you've read the book where he talked about the Matthew effect and the 10,000 hour rule, you have to run through that boring task 10 for 10,000 hours to be able to integrate it. So we want to really shift that that we want to shift that habit from something you have to think about through to your basal ganglia where it's automated, so you don't have to think about it, you just do it. And that's why is really critical. Developing good habits is critical so that you don't have to think through it. You just know that you need to do this and you get into deep work. So scheduling is great. Having a ritual is great. And that's why the Lifetime Habit Act talks about the trigger, the ritual, the reward, and the repetition. And like I said, all change gorgeous at the end. So you have to be true to yourself and say to yourself that I'm ready for the deep work that is required of me. You don't want to mess with regrets, right? You don't want to mess with regrets. Do what you know you need to do today while you have the time. There are certain things that are out of our control. Do what you need to do today while you have the time. And so I quickly want to read something from the 5 a.m. Club. That's a book by Robin Sharma. He says the way to annihilate the weakest impulses of your lower self and to free yourself of the cravings and temptations that are blocking your best is through ceaseless repetition of the new behavior you are working hard to install. Has been placed in your hands to do it all of your might. Do it with everything that you have got. Okay? Each time you follow through, you will deepen the relationship with your sovereign self. Each time you follow through, you will deepen the relationship with your sovereign self. Okay? And your purifying character, fortifying your willpower, and magnifying the fires of your soul. That's where I come to the end of our live stream for today. I hope this has been beneficial to you. Dan Roku 78, hack my behavior. Okay, I don't understand what that means. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope I was able to answer your question, Mofo. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you all for joining me. Come again next week, Wednesday, where we talk about how to execute brutally, how to increase your focus, guard your attention, and run through brutal focus. Remember, I said cohort 7 of the Unstoppable Me waitlist is up, and you can join. I'm going to drop the link to the waitlist in the description so you get into that deep dive, that deep execution accelerator where you put your goals to flight. Trust me, a community that has like-minded professionals working towards a goal is a game changer. It will change your systems, it will change your strategy, it will change your habit. You would emerge a better person, a higher version of yourself. I hope this has helped you today. I am Elizabeth Omoware, the productivity strategist. Thank you all for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your day.